So I'm seeing that you two are actually twin flames. Okay, and that's probably no surprise to both of you. Okay, it's just like so obvious, it's like you're the flip side of the same coin. It's really beautiful how you two kind of separated, and you had different experiences, but then you would come together at certain times, and then you would split apart, and then come together and split apart. So when I was checking the records, what immediately came up was you were part of this overall group consciousness that initially connected to Galactic Center. And initially, you were kind of this this group of souls that was part of a collective. Okay. However, I think you were both, I think, the same soul at one point. So you were like this, you kind of split apart from the collective, and you were this massive soul that then split into the Kimberley soul and then the Brandon soul. Okay. I'm seeing a connection with you two. Initially, Kimberly has more like a Lyra Vega, or no, a Lyra Pleiades path, and Brandon is more Vega Sirius. But I'm seeing that you two both had your physical incarnations together in Lyra Vega. And that was when you first, I would say, connected. I would say on you both had like a physical incarnation in more physical form. Of course, it was still higher dimensional. Okay, so we're talking like maybe sixth or seventh dimension. So we're talking crystalline body forms instead of carbon based. But I'm trying to see how you two got together. So I'm seeing it's kind of a story that's somewhat similar to the story that I think one of my clients had, where she connected with this Vega man, through adversity. Kimberly, I think you were somebody that you were always Lyran, okay, but you were, I think, taking quite a few trips to Vega. And I think the reason why you were doing this was because you were an emissary coming from the Lyran councils, okay? So you were kind of like more in an emissary role, and you were, I think, kind of the messenger or the go-between between the Lyra and the Vega, councils. Okay. So you were like a representative. And that was when I think you first met Brandon. I'm seeing that Brandon was part of the Vega Council during this time. And I'm seeing that it was, I think, an instant recognition, or yes, of course I know you. You're the other part of me, kind of thing. And so I see that you two had, I think, initially a very professional relationship with each other, but then obviously it got very romantic, at some point. But this was around the time of the Lyran Wars, okay? And there was, I think, quite a bit of concern, at least on the Lyran side, of, how are we going to evacuate all our people? We don't have enough starships. And so, Kimberly, I think because you had this relationship with the Vega people, and particularly with Brandon, you were able to elicit help from some of the Vega fleets to do some evacuation of some of the planets, because I think otherwise there would have been more people that would have lost their lives. Okay, so it was a very important mission. Brandon at this time, Brandon's always had, I think, an interest in history and science. But during this time, I think he was connected with, I think, certain star fleets with the Vega Command. Okay, so I think he had some influence on being able to talk them into doing these evacuations of some of the Lyran planets in addition to the Vega ones. Okay, so you both, I think, were able to survive the wars, but I think what happened during all the chaos was the initial idea idea was, okay, Kimberly, you're going to go back, get your people, and then you're going to reconnect with Brandon at some later time, okay? Because Brandon was involved with arranging for the starships to evacuate his own people, whereas, Kimberly was focused on getting some of the Vega starships to evacuate some of the Lyrans, okay? So the idea was that you both were going to reconnect together after the wars, but actually that didn't happen. You two got separated. It was so bad. I don't think either one of you were able to foresee how bad the wars were and just how chaotic things got. Brandon was pretty much, could no longer wait for, those Vega fleets that were evacuating the Lyran planets. So they made their way to Sirius, okay? Kimberly's starships, on the other hand, ended up deciding to go to the Pleiades. So this was, I think, the first separation that you two experienced, and it was very, very difficult. I mean, it was like, you both survived and you both went on with your lives, but felt like there was a piece that was missing, okay? And probably even in this life, before you two met, it kind of felt like things were incomplete until you two came together. And then it was like things started really falling into place. So this was, I think, the very first lives that you had, okay? Eventually, I'm seeing that even though you were kind of an emissary role, initially in Lyra, throughout, I would say, several lifetimes in the Pleiades, you became, I think, very interested in healing. Always a path that you had. Predominantly lifetimes in Alcyon and Moropi for you. So I don't know if either one of those star systems sound familiar, but
absolutely.
Yeah, you ended up in Alcyon, okay, when you escaped the Lyran Wars, okay, and you had quite a few incarnations there, but you had become, I think, so focused on healing and you were predominantly training in, I would say, kind of like the basic physical healing modalities in Alcyon, and I think you had some creative involvements as well, because Alcyon was it was a very well integrated star system. There was high technology, high creativity, high spiritual path for people that had their lifetimes there. At some point you felt like, I need to learn more. So I think in between lives you decided you were going to start having incarnations in Moropi. Moropi is actually the home of the great Pleiadian psycho-spiritual healers. Okay, so these are the really deep level psycho-spiritual healing that occurred in Moropi. So this was the very deep feminine mystery cults, that was on these planets that revolved around the Moropi star. Okay, I think you'll always feel that Alcyon is your home, but you also have, I think, a love of Moropi because of all the deep mysteries you were learning in the Moropi system, and that was your path. I think it was a very deep path, and I'm seeing that in the Moropi system was where I think you first encountered this being that you were telling me about this afternoon. And what I'm seeing is that even though she was young, she was actually one of your Moropian teachers. So she's actually, I think, an even more ancient soul than you and Brandon are in a lot of ways. And she is part of the same core collective that came from Galactic Center way back when. But when you connected with her in Moropi, you felt this deep love, this family love. Like, oh my God. She has this more Pleiadian component to her energy. Very wise. I think she's wise beyond her years, even in this lifetime, and she probably is more mature, very mature for her age. But I think she also has a levity about her soul. She can laugh and giggle and have fun, but then she gets very serious, so she gets real serious real fast. Kimberly, when you first connected with her in Moropi, you felt like, wow, she's so young, but man, she knows a lot. But yeah, you can laugh and giggle with her and have fun, and it was kind of like a sisterly kind of relationship. So you I think this is part of the reason why you felt this deep connection with this particular soul. And during this lifetime in Moropi, you were able to create the soul contract, that has been long lasting throughout multiple incarnations. She's an ancient Moropian divine feminine priestess, and so even in this lifetime, I think she's coming here to do big healing work, really big healing work. Okay.
Well, the funny thing is, she wants to be a doctor.
Wow. Okay. So she's definitely following in the Moropian footsteps, definitely. She's going to change the way things are done in the medical system, though. And I think by the time that she gets old enough and goes through medical school, she's going to integrate more alternative healing modalities into her practice. I'm hoping by the time that she gets her license, and her medical degree, that the alternative healing practices will be more accepted. But I see her integrating. I think she's going to still use modern medicine, but she's going to integrate quite a few of the deep healing practices. And I see her healing not only people on I think part of what's going to make her very unique as a doctor is when she gets into that she's going to be able to heal people on the core level. Okay, so she's not just going to be healing symptoms. She's going to look at the core of, okay, why does this person have cancer, or why is this person, suffering from this particular disease? What's the real core emotional component behind it? Gifts that she brought with her from Moropi. So let's kind of backtrack and look at Brandon. Okay, so Brandon's ship ended up in Sirius. Okay, he's had lifetimes, and you're very much connected with the Sirian mystery schools. Okay, so I think initially you were one of the Sirian explorers that would go to different star systems and collect information and bring it back to Earth or bring it back to Sirius. You're actually a very gifted historian, and I think you integrate a lot of your historical knowledge, through the books that you write and the stories that you like to. Like a lot of the stories that you write are, I think, kind of like it has an overlay of galactic history, even though you try to bring it down to like modern terminology, but there's that overlay of galactic history and the overlay of Sirian history, because I see definitely the Sirian influence in your stories. A lot of your stories seem to have like a very mystical aspect to it, and Sirius was a very mystical, magical kind of place. It was quite a bit of diversity because they had a lot of different types of beings that lived on Sirius. So it wasn't just humanoids. There was reptilian beings and lion beings and amphibian beings and dolphins and whales and all these various different types of beings that coexisted on Sirius, maybe even more so than in the Pleiades. So I think you're used to that diversity and you're used to that mysticism and magic that that was very, very evident in Sirian, the Sirian planets. So, but I'm seeing, you've had lifetimes as a teacher, as a historian, as a scientist. Okay, so I think you've always been kind of more in a scholarly kind of role, but also there's a little bit of the explorer in you as well, because you're not one that's going to turn down a trip to to planet Earth to see what's going on planet Earth. So I'm seeing that you had visits to planet Earth even as an extraterrestrial. But in the meantime, I think you were always kind of feeling like there was some component that was missing, that I think you felt this longing to reconnect with your true love, that you lost, in the Lyran Vega Wars. And so I think in between lies, I think you and Kimberly, I think, decided that, okay, we need to reconnect somehow, even though we're in these vastly different star systems. So Kimberly, I'm seeing that you decided that as a Pleiadian, okay, and I think you were visiting as a Pleiadian soul, but you decided that you wanted to spend time on Sirius. And the reason for that is because Sirius was very well known as being the masters of physical healing. And so these were like, they were, as the Moropians were masters at psycho-spiritual healing. Sirians were the masters of physical healing. And so there was a whole other layer of, healing modalities that you wanted to learn and discover about. So you made the decision to make the long trip to Sirius and start studying at the Syrian mystery schools. And that's where you reconnected again with Brandon. And again, it was that deep recognition of, oh my gosh, I know you, you're my long lost love. And there was this great elation, this great happiness that you two came together. He was kind of a professor, he was in kind of a teacher role. And even though I think he was more in the historical section or the scientific section, there was, I think, times where you would, I think study with him or study, you would, and I'm not saying he was directly your teacher, but there was times that you would go for him for mentorship and advice, and it was just this deep love between you two, and it was just this great happiness. Yeah, that, oh my gosh, we're able to reconnect again. And at that point, I think you both decided that, whatever that we do from here on out, we're going to do together. So Kimberly, you spent actually quite a bit of time in Sirius. And I think you had happy lives with Brandon. But then there came that big decision of, okay, we've accomplished all that we could together in Sirius. What do we do from here? And there was this call for, Syrian and Pleiadian souls to volunteer for the Earth Ascension Project. And you both kind of looked at each other and you're like, do we want to do this? And I don't know. I think you were both kind of like, I don't know. It's going to be a very tough assignment. And Brandon was like, I've been to Earth. And he says it's primitive on Earth. It's not. They're not quite as evolved. So. But I do see that. I think there was always the intention that, if you were going to go to Earth, you were going to do it together. Brandon's daughter got involved with the contract, okay? And I think because she's part of the same core soul family, and she felt a call also to volunteer for Earth. And so, throughout her few Earth incarnations, she's always wanted to have a connection with Kimberly and Brandon. She's chosen, in various lifetimes on Earth to be either part of Kimberly's family or Brandon's family. But so Kimberly, when you had the experience where you were on board the ship and they kind of tattooed you or put a mark on you, you said the numbers were 33 and then it was an upside down 503?
No, it was 33 and then 305. It was all backwards.
Oh, backwards. Okay, 305. Okay. So I think there's obviously a numerical or numerology meaning behind this, but 3 is, I think, the sign of the Trinity. So there's kind of like this Trinity, this core soul connection between you and Brandon and Alima, you said, or Alina. So there's a 333. So you put three threes together, you get a master number, which is 9. So I think the 3 of you together are supposed to bring in, the mastery of what you came here to do, which was, I think, Brandon's role of this is to awaken people, okay, through his writing and his stories. Kimberly and Alima's is for healing, okay. Kimberly is, predominantly through, Kimberly and Alima, so you're both Cancer and Taurus. It's interesting that Alima is a Taurus and she came from the Pleiades. And the Pleiades is located in Taurus, okay. So, so Kimberly and Alima both are the great Moropian healers, okay? So that's what they came to do. Brandon is like, He's the awakener. He's the one that is, putting the information out there. He's the teacher. He's the scholar. He's the one that's going to be, shifting people's realities through expanding their imagination. I think even, implanting some seeds for soul memories. Because when I was reading, Brandon's, I'm sorry, Brandon, I never got the chance to read the second book. I look forward to doing that. And when I was reading your book, I felt like, wow, a lot of the components of Brandon's story sound so familiar. Like it's a story that I know. I've known the story, and I don't even come from Sirius originally, but I just felt there was, some elements to the story that was very, very familiar. Especially when you talked about the historical background, information to your story. And I think that's what you're doing with other people as well, especially those that came from other star systems. They're going to read, your books, and they're going to be like, "Wow, this is awakening some core soul memory that I have, or something about maybe where I came from, or something about a lifetime that I had." And so I think you are the great awakener, and you are a Libra. You're a very, I would say, analytical sign. You're dealing mostly with information and facts. So you're, more the masculine component of this trinity, okay? And then Kimberly and Alima are going to be, the more feminine components, okay? So they're the ones that are coming into, to heal people, okay? So the three of you actually have a very, I would say, a very interesting mission, and it's always been kind of the three of you together. So the 333 represents, I think, the Trinity, and the 5 is interesting because the 5 is an action number. So I think when I was looking in the records of how you got this mark, okay, I think what happened with you, and it's interesting that this all happened like right before you had this reading, Kimberly, okay, so it's like almost like your higher self was like, okay, these are the components that you need to remember. So I think when you got that mark, you were brought on board a Pleiadian ship that's in the solar system. It's almost like your higher self is on board one of those ships. It brought, the Earth you on board the ship. And the mark was, I think, to remind you. It was kind of like a numerical sequence, and it was like a star code even, to remind you of your mission, of what you came here to do. The memory that you had today, or I don't know, was it a dream or a vision? I can't remember what you had today.
It was a dream.
Okay, so you had this dream about this girl that seemed very much like Brandon's daughter. You had that dream to remind yourself of the other person that's part of this mission, and who she truly is. I mean, you've always known her in this lifetime as Brandon's daughter, but now you know who she truly is. I'm just kind of just helping you guys. I mean, you guys already know this. I'm just helping you place the I'm just kind of giving you the puzzle pieces, kind of like, oh, okay, this is how this all kind of fits together.
Right, because I've seen her before too. Like,
oh, you have you? Okay.
She looked at me as I was telling Kim. She looked at me. She had this expression. She had these loving eyes toward me, but she was still sort of standing back. And it was almost as though bad things right now, and it's like I don't need you to distract me from that, because that connection is going to hold me back. And it was actually, I was holding the helmet.
Right.
I was clad with armor, and I was walking past her, and I just stopped and I looked at her for a second, and then I kept going, out the door. And so that struck me. But until Kim said something about this dream today, I hadn't put it together.
Gotcha. Okay.
I understood her to be our daughter. Yeah.
And I would say spiritually, she truly is your daughter. yeah, I think you three came together. I think the shift, obviously to shift the consciousness of this planet, but you all came in with very specific gifts. Okay. Interestingly enough, Alima is actually, I think, going to be, because she's bringing with her some very technical abilities that, because I think Kimberly's like the mother. She's like the mother energy, and Brandon's like the father energy, and then Alima's kind of bringing in kind of components of both, so she's actually kind of a blend of Brandon and Kimberly, so she's actually going to be a little bit more technical in her approach, which fits because she is a third wave volunteer, so she's coming here to rebuild new systems. Kimberly and Brandon, you guys are more indigo children. You came here to break down the old system. So I think, even when you guys, when your contract here in this lifetime's finished, Alima's going to continue to do the work. And then, you'll three will come back together, at some point, either in New Earth or in the Pleiades or Sirius, I'm not sure. As far as Earth lives, it's kind of funny. I'm seeing definitely an Atlantean connection with all three of you. Okay. Yeah, I think Alima was really interested in Lemuria, but I kind of see that all three of you decided to have lives in Atlantis. Okay, so yeah, it was kind of like you all took very similar roles to what you're doing now. So, but with Brandon, I'm seeing that you were involved, I think, with the councils, because I think that was your, originally in Vega, you were involved with the councils in Vega, and I think even in Sirius you were involved with the councils there. So you became involved, I think, so I'm seeing you kind of more in the role of an attorney in Atlantis, that you were wanting to help create laws and implement laws. I think, and I think you always had high ethics around, the work that you were doing. But I think you were very frustrated because you saw a lot of corruption in the Atlantean system, even back then. And you were connected with Kimberly, because she's your twin flame, and she was there in that lifetime. And Kimberly was a pediatrician, so she was like, administering healing to children predominantly. And I'm seeing Alima was kind of like a scientist. Okay, so she was also, I think, she was both your physical daughter. I mean, so in this life, Alima's not Kimberly's physical daughter, but in that life she was. And then I'm seeing other lives where it was kind of like you guys kind of changed roles sometimes. I don't know. It was kind of interesting, and wasn't, sometimes you didn't have like a romantic connection. Sometimes it was more like a family connection, and just depending on the lifetime and whatever, I think, decisions you made for that particular lifetime. Brandon and I definitely, well, with all three of you, I definitely see Atlantis and Egypt. And not just one, but I would say at least 2 lives in Atlantis and probably 3 lives in Egypt. Okay, so you guys spent quite a bit of time in those 2 cultures. Egypt was interesting because I think during the downfall of Atlantis, I think Brandon survived, but Kimberly and Alima didn't. Okay, so there was a separation again. So Brandon, I think was able to escape to Egypt. So he was kind of setting the groundwork for Egypt in that lifetime.
My God, the funny thing is that these visions that I told Kim this exact stuff, and that puts me in mind frame of talking my aunt, and then later on in Egypt, Osiris and Isis.
Exactly. Yeah.
That would have made Alima Horus.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Because I see, initially, I think you were involved with the cult of Ma'at in your, when you arrived in Egypt, and that was the goddess of truth, so that would fit, and Thoth, Thoth was the god of knowledge, okay, knowledge and communication, and that's what you do. you're involved with knowledge and communication and telling the truth. Okay, so both these Egyptian deities actually represent archetypes that represent who you are. So then when Alima and Kimberly were able to reincarnate in Egypt, you were able to take on the elevated, so you were like the human representation of Osiris. Kimberly was Isis and Alima was Horus. And I think that's basically, Alima is kind of like the representation of the blend of the masculine and feminine energies. So that's why I keep saying that she's going to be more technical, because she's going to integrate quite a bit of masculine energies that, Kimberly doesn't have. Okay. You're like the mother goddess archetype. You're always like the mother goddess archetype. Brandon's always like the father god archetype. And then, there's Alima that's kind of like the blend of both of you. She really is. And I think that makes her a more well integrated soul, because, she is kind of this blend. But she was always like the representation of Horus, exactly. I don't know. I don't know why I'm seeing this. When she was younger, was she fascinated with hawks or birds of prey or
Hawks?
Hawks, okay. Yeah, I'm seeing her as a child in this lifetime that she was very interested in hawks for some reason.
And wasn't her spirit animal a hawk?
The hawk is kind of a physical representation of Horus. So she's actually going to be, I would say, she's going to do really, you two are doing big work, but Alima's coming, she's going to do really big work. Okay, she's going to outdo all of us. Okay, she's just going to be, she's going to be so magnificent that we can't even hold a candle to her. Because she's that advanced. Okay, she was the human archetype of Horus. And in that lifetime, I think she may have even been born male. Because sometimes you guys change genders too, and depending on the lifetime. But I think because she felt like, she would be more accepted as male in that particular culture, she incarnated as male, but with carrying very well integrated feminine energies. Okay, so that's what, Horus represents. And Horus also has kind of I think, a sun god energy, because a lot of people associate Ra with the sun, but I think Horus also has, I think, a lot of sun energy. And Horus a lot of times is associated with Jesus. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Traits that Horus had integrated from Ra, given that Ra was his grandfather anyway. Horus was fiercely protective of Osiris, which is what set the war between Horus and Set.
Mm-hmm.
And Alima is very, very fiercely protective of me.
Yes.
In the wrong way. Without Alima wanting to. So I can definitely see that.
So during those lifetimes, it was like, Kimberly and Alima were coming with these really strong Pleiadian energies, and then Brandon was, representation of Sirius, so it was and again, this is really interesting. I just thought of this. The symbol for Sirius, and the Egyptian symbol for Sirius is, I think, a triangle, okay, which is the Trinity, okay. And it's the Osiris, it's called the Osiris, Isis, Horus Trinity. And Sirius used to be a trinary star system. So there used to be a Sirius A, a Sirius B, and a Sirius C. Well, Sirius C got destroyed, okay? So now there's just Sirius A and Sirius C. That's kind of the representation of how Horus had to, was crucified and then brought back to life. And, Osiris was crucified, brought back to life. So there's this, so I'm wondering if at some point, and maybe in an alternate reality, that, maybe we're going to see the re-emergence of Sirius C in the future. Even if it doesn't happen physically, that the representation will still be there. So, but what they called, I think, Sirius in Egypt was Sophis was the Trinity, okay? The mark that Kimberly got on her arm was representing the Trinity that's, I think, represented in all three of you. So that's why, the number 3, and then the combination makes the number 9, which is a master number. The 0 and the 5, I'm not 100% sure of. I think 5 is a moving forward number. It's, combining, I think, the various skill sets of Brandon, Kimberly, Alima, and moving forward. So Kimberly, obviously, I think when you met Alima in this lifetime, you kind of felt like, oh wow, I know her, or I know she feels like my daughter, even though she's physically not really my daughter. But
yeah, I've never called her my stepdaughter.
So how about you have sons as well, Kimberly? Yeah. So,
5. I have 5 sons.
Oh my goodness, girlfriend! I didn't know you had that many. Oh, that's where the 5 comes in. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Oh God, that just hit me. Yes.
It's 3, 3, 3, then 0, which is the whole, and then the 5, which is the 5 sons. My goodness! Wow, that is so crazy.
It just hit me. That just struck me as soon as you said you had 5 boys. It just struck me because we've got 6 children together.
Right.
And the 3 of us is obviously who we represent plus the 5.
Yeah, and we have the 3, 3 are together, and then the 305.
So there's a 3, 3, and then there's the 305, which I think the O represents completion. Okay. I think your sons also have a play in this. Okay. Now I do see mostly Pleiadian. I would say Pleiadian origins with your sons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Now the 5 of them, are they all pretty spiritual, or some of them are more spiritual than others, or?
No, they're all pretty spiritual. They all have the same gifts that I have.
Wow.
My 7-year-old was telling me about, do you remember when I came here? Do you remember how I got here? He remembers. He remembers everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I've always often seen the boys both set between Egypt and Greece.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Especially as historians, and I've always seen Zachary and more of the role of Solon, the historian.
Yeah.
Wow, so now we know what the numbers mean.
No, because I knew you had other kids, Kimberly, and I was like, how do the other kids play in this? Because I'm sure they're not just there for decoration, you know what I'm saying? But, so it's like you all have this contract. The boys I'm seeing is all Alcyon, okay, all of them. And I'm seeing that, they were part of that core soul family. But definitely more Pleiadian, not quite as experienced of a soul as Alima. Alima's like, the shining star. Not that she's better than they are, but just that, she's just a much more experienced soul. So that's what, I'm seeing with her.
Drawn, which is why she's so drawn to the boys. Like she yearns, like she's trying to find every excuse to try to get to the boys.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Even to the point where she wants to, come over to Canada and babysit.
Oh, how sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's really got an affinity for Ethan.
Wow, that's amazing.
I don't know what the connection between her and Ethan is, but she's got a deep affinity.
I wonder if Ethan is her twin flame, in a sense.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Because when she met Ethan, she is like she was immediately like enamored, and she, she's just, I don't know, she's just got this thing, like she's got a deep affinity for Ethan, like she wants to come and take care of Ethan, but she wants to spend time with Zach. It's almost that tomboy edge inside of her. Feels like she'll be challenged by Christian, But when she found out that Aiden was sick, much like when her friend, she had a friend that got extremely ill and he had to lose his legs. And when she found out that Aiden was sick, she was sick. I didn't tell you that part, Kim, but she felt like in the pit of her gut until she found out he was fine. She literally was like in a state of depression.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Well, she's definitely empathic. I mean, that's without a doubt. I mean, I think she's yeah. I kind of see a family connection between her and Ethan. So maybe Ethan is not even. Maybe he's a Moropian soul as well. Okay. The other boys, I'm seeing Alcyon in a variety of different. I think I would say psychic gifts. I mean, very.
Oh yeah.
I mean, beyond, what you would see in most kids, I mean, all the kids are starseeds. All of your kids, which is very actually unusual. I think, most families you might have one or two that are starseeds, and the rest are Earth souls. But with your family, it's like all of you guys are starseeds.
Yeah, with Zach, I immediately had an instant bond and connection with him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Zach is the youngest or the oldest?
No, he's the second youngest.
Oh, okay.
And I was wondering what that connection between he and I, you know what I'm saying? Because if Alima would be more so in the Horus role, I almost see Zach in like the Anubis role.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Because he also was a child of Osiris. I almost see Zach in that Anubis role.
Yeah, I could see that too, actually.
He's fiercely protective.
He's very fascinated by death right now, and I had no idea like where it would come from.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like very immersed into death,
mm-hmm.
and telling everybody like death is not the end, and you just leave one place and go to another. And, yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so he would be very much Anubis / Hermes if I drew the Greek connection.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, definitely.
You don't see any warrior roles for Brandon, because since I've met him, I've called him a warrior. Everything about him reminds me of warrior.
Yeah, I would say probably in his I think Brandon's had Roman incarnations, because he has an affinity for Greco-Roman, I think culture, and I think it's because he's had lifetimes. And I think he's probably had, not gladiator so much, but with the military. But I see kind of a nobleman, like he was appointed to be in an officer role in the military because of his status. I see a Spartan
I do have
incarnation.
Yeah, I can see Spartan. I have a question, right? Because you just brought it up. Now, I do see Spartan, but I have a deep hatred for Roman anything, Roman history, Roman anything.
You had a lifetime there, but I think you have a hatred for it because you saw the corruption of the system.
Okay, exactly. And I thought that was possible because I do know that I am connected to Rome somehow. I've always had a deep hatred for Rome.
Yeah, it was because you had a lifetime there, and you saw your loved ones die. You saw the corruption in the system. I think you were very in Sparta. It was more like, everything was honorable. It was all about family. It was all about, the community. It didn't have the corruption that Rome had. Okay, Rome was extremely difficult. Yeah. So, and in Sparta, you had a very similar role. You were in a very aristocratic family. Every Spartan learned how to fight. I mean, it was expected for the boys to be involved with with the army, Spartan army. So it was very similar. So you've had, I think, roles as warriors. Okay, warrior, kind of like aristocratic warriors kind of thing. But Sparta, I don't think.
The fighting system is Poncriton, which is Spartan. That's my favorite fighting system.
Yeah, no, and because you employed it, you know it really well. I mean, it was definitely, I think, Romans. I think they borrowed from a lot of different cultures. They borrowed from the Etruscans, they borrowed from the Greeks, they borrowed from everybody. You know what I'm saying? They kind of just, jambled everything together, and they kind of bastardized all these, what was supposed.
Almost like I'm going all the way back there right now. Like Jupiter, we all know that was Zeus.
Of course, yeah.
Mars, we all know that was
Aries. Aries, yeah.
Aries, yeah.
No, you had an incarnation in Rome, and you were just like, that was, I think, probably the worst incarnation you had. You were going off on these campaigns, and it was just like, it was hard, and it sucked, and it was just
I believe I was probably a chain breaker there because, I've connected to a story of a Roman that when he grew so much in disgust of his the politics of it, he would actually break the chains and actually create insurgents within the walls of Rome.
Yeah, from the inside, yeah.
That might have it could have been my incarnation there. Became the best warrior, soldier and warrior there. And he actually taught the neighboring lands guerrilla warfare, so when they would march through, they knew how to beat the Romans on the road because their phalanx system would not work on in those narrow passageways. And I think that could have been me because he was actually instrumental in the lead of the fall to Rome.
Yeah, gotcha. But you had to be in the system to know the system, so.
Right.
Yeah, to know how to break the system, you had to be in the system first. So yeah, I can definitely see that too. I hope this brought some answers to some questions that you all had about your connections with each other and some of the.
Oh, a lot.
Okay, and some
it
of the.
It was very affirmative.
Yeah.
From the memories that have been surfacing. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Brandon and Kimberly, I've been waiting to do this reading with you guys for quite a while, and I'm so glad we finally got connected, and you two are such a beautiful couple and a beautiful family, and I want to wish all of you the very best, your journey together on this lifetime and beyond.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
That was awesome.